Gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to this town hall to talk about the impact that Kratom has had. And specifically, we're going to be talking today about veterans and the access that they benefit from with a substance like Kratom that has, in the many hearings that I've been across the country, I hear it over and over again from the mouths of those veterans who have said it saved their lives in many cases. And it's amazing to see the number of people that do that. And we know that that's true for first responders. We know it's true for many that are in the service of our country and in our communities who rely on this. And when the initial recommendation was made in 2016 by the FDA to schedule Kratom, if you look at the public comments that were sent to the Drug Enforcement Administration, of the 23,232 comments, the number of military and first responders who spoke in favor of Kratom remaining legal was amazing, because they could testify to it. And that, I think, is a reason why we're here today. We're going to have this panel discussion. Our first speaker is going to be a champion of Kratom in the United States Congress. And I can tell you that this is a critical part of the advocacy effort that we're involved in order to assure that Kratom remains legal to consumers who want to responsibly consume it in the United States. In 2016, when the FDA tried their recommendation through the DEA to schedule, Congressman Matt Salmon, who today is here, Matt, we all owe him a round of applause. Matt Salmon recruited Mark Pocan, a Democrat from the state of Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, by the way, is a banned state for Kratom right now, and he's trying to unwind and undo that for us. But he's also a co-sponsor with Congressman Bergman on the federal Kratom Consumer Protection Act. And from 2016 to today, look at the difference. In 16, we were under threat of Kratom being banned. And here in 2024, the FDA is on their heels, because the science is proving that we were right in 2016 and they were wrong. We're going to talk about that a little bit before we're done here today, but the FDA is on their heels. And now what we're asking is that Kratom be responsibly regulated to make sure that every consumer, when they purchase a Kratom product, has confidence that it meets good manufacturing standards, that it's labeled properly, and that the formulations have the serving sizes and recommended serving sizes that will allow them to responsibly consume Kratom products. That's our goal, that's what we believe in, and I know many of you are vendors of Kratom products, and we appreciate your support for that objective. So we're going to start with our town hall today with inviting Congressman Bergman to come. He is a co-sponsor of the Federal Kratom Consumer Protection Act. The flyers describe his background as a former Lieutenant General of the Marine Corps, and I can tell you I'm honored to be surrounded on both sides by Marines. And their obvious stature in the community as defenders of what we do. So Congressman Bergman, we invite you to come up and lead out on our town hall.
Thank you, and literally, I just got off an airplane from DC, so we got here as quickly as we could, given Las Vegas traffic, and the most important person in the room here with me is Amelia Burns, who's sitting over there. She's my deputy chief, and the point is there's someone who may want to share business cards or get contact information and all that, but she's the person that really kind of runs the show. Yeah, I guess the cat's out of the bag that I'm a Marine, retired Lieutenant General. To put a little more meat on that bone, I'm the highest ranking combat veteran ever elected to Congress in the history of the country. All that really means, and by the way, today would have been my mother's 110th birthday. But in the words of my mother, don't get too full of yourself. So the point is, all that means is that we got some potentially underperforming, lazy, retired 4-stars. Because any one of them could run and knock me off that perch. So again, in honor of my mother's, what would have been her 110th birthday today, I channel her a lot. I was raised by a Minnesota farm girl, and I'm married to an Iowa farm girl, so I know manure when I hear it and see it. But let's get to the serious part here. It's all serious. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek to understand before trying to be understood. Begin with the end in mind. And then there's another author, Simon Sinek, who one of his books is Begin with Why, or something like that. And when you think about the why, and my role is not as a Marine, my role is not anything other than I am a member of the House of Representatives, and I was sent there to represent my constituents and work with 434 others on a myriad of issues. Some are easier for people to grasp and get onto than others. And I'm going to give you a tangential example, and then we'll come right back to Kratom. When you hear the word psychedelics, it is a word that immediately something strikes in our mind in one way or the other. Good, bad, unique, the 60s, all of those kinds of things. Well, about a year ago, Lou Carreta, who's a Democrat from Los Angeles area, and I founded the PATH Caucus, Psychedelic Advancing Therapies, because we believe through our research and what's going on out there with whether it be ketamine, MDMA, moving on to mushrooms and other different therapies, our country has not had any really big breakthrough therapies since the 1950s, and that's because we've become a society of pills. It is. There's a pill for this, and if there's not a pill for this, then there's a different pill for this, and this is how it works. So when you think about breakthrough therapies, I believe my role as a member of the House of Representatives is to work with all my colleagues who are willing to this is where the Marine comes in, not be afraid to take a first step, not be afraid to be the first one out there to get hammered by those who either don't understand or probably more seriously won't understand what it is you're trying to do. So with Mark Pocan from Milwaukee, one of the things we do have in common, we both root for the Packers. So, but to have a sponsor like him, to join him from the Democrat side, we're beginning to build slow momentum. But again, what is the role of the House of Representatives and in the federal government? We already heard about, what is the FDA doing or tried to do, whether it was the right thing to do, what was their motive. I believe the role of the House of Representatives is to kind of control the bureaucracies. And the way you control them is not allow them to do what the hell they damn well please. You have to put the guidelines on them, because if you don't, they will come up with bad things, bad reasons, and bad results. And that's where we have a battle to fight here as we move forward. But, we did a letter in 2018 that was, to the FDA to lift, the idea that it's misleading warning against kratom. I mean, that's some of the little things that I've done. Authored an op-ed on the Hill back in July of 23, discussing the benefits and that what again, Mark and I are collating. And of course, we got HR 5905, which is the Federal Kratom Consumer Protection Act. And basically, you start with, in most cases, the way it works in DC, you're going to start with a hearing. So we want the FDA to hold a hearing, establish a task force on health and safety of products that contain kratom It's logical stuff. It doesn't happen overnight, but you have to build the momentum. And it's not so much making more people understand what it is, it's making more people understand and accept what it's not or what it's purported to be, the scare tactics, used by those. So, put simply, we want to stop the tainted products, but don't blanket ban anything that has kratom in it, because you're guilty by association, and there's just a little bit. There will be an agency that tries to knock it down. We maybe you watch the news. We have our challenges right now, DC, getting anything done. But that doesn't mean we're not getting anything done, because when the media is telling you we're doing this, this, and this, really guys like Mark and I are working behind the scenes, not getting caught up in the soap opera media stuff, and just working it day after day to make sure that we're going to get the right things done. This is a long game. We know, for example, we just got language going back to psychedelics. We just got language in the VA, Veterans Administration, just agreed to do studies, control studies on psychedelics. That's a big deal. Because it may sound like I'm against bureaucracies. I'm not. A good bureaucracy takes in an idea, turns it around, and gives you option A, B, or C. A bad bureaucracy, you put the idea in and nothing ever happens, or it's a bad outcome, or whatever it is. But we've made some steps, I believe, in the last year and a half, in moving the bureaucracies forward, whether it's getting the FDA to make sure it does what it's supposed to do, getting the VA to take some risk and do the studies. But as a veteran, yeah, I guess I could use this. I tell people will mention something about this, that, or the other thing. I say, well, as a Marine, and it was all the other services too, we've been lab rats in a lot of experiments over time. Anybody here old enough to remember the shotgun when you were going through basic training and you lined up in the dispensary and there was a corpsman on your left and a corpsman on your right, and they had the gun that had several tubes, and you just stood there. The one thing you didn't want to do was move, because the needle come out, it would slice you, but you got all your vaccinations in about 4 steps. Okay, I'm not saying good or bad, and it is what it is, but for us to not do everything we can, especially when it comes to products like kratom, when we see there's been results for addiction recovery, everything, all the good things that go along with it. If we don't continue to press for a better governmental role, it doesn't necessarily mean more, it just means a clean, clear government role, then we're not doing our job in the Congress. So I'm more than happy to experiment with things that logically will treat addiction. And when you think about it, what does addiction lead to in so many cases? Suicide. And how shameful if we don't play our role to lower, I don't know if we will ever eliminate, but by God, we need to be hitting it hard so that we can give these veterans and their families a life that is full, a life that is meaningful, and that they know, and then they can spread the word to others, because we're all at risk in some way, shape, or form at different times in our lives. But this is about doing the right thing for the right reason. So having said that, as you can tell now that I'm a politician, I can probably stand and talk forever and not say a damn thing. But that's an art, not a science. I'd like to just kind of stop here at this point, and let's turn it over, because I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Bergman. And I can tell you that when it comes to members of Congress, back in 2016, when Matt Salmon led the charge, we had, within 2 weeks, 25 Democrats and 26 Republicans that signed the letter telling the DA not to do it. One on the Senate side was a little more difficult because we had 9 members of the Senate that signed our letter, and then Senator Cory Booker called me in and he said, "I'm not signing your letter." And I said, "I'm sorry to hear that." He said, "Well, it's not because I don't believe it shouldn't be scheduled, it's because this letter doesn't speak my voice." He said, "My voice is about over-criminalization." He said, "You put a ban in and you were going to put people in jail. We already have a drug war that's failed and our prisons are filled with people that are there unnecessarily and incorrectly." He said, so he did a separate letter. And we ended up with a total of 13 members of the U.S. Senate, some of which signed Senator Booker's letter. But the thing that I learned from that, the Drug Policy Alliance, Grant Smith, who's one of their national leaders there, they're great advocates for Kratom and its accessibility. He said, "You've got to meet someone that is really a champion in this area of over-criminalization and fighting the drug war." And he introduced me to Diane Goldstein, who is the executive director of the Law Enforcement Action Project. And it has been a blessing in my life personally to get to know Diane, and every one of you should consider her a blessing in your lives too. I want her to come up and tell about her experience here with the Kratom movement. Thank you.
I normally would never correct Mac about anything, but it's Law Enforcement Action Partnership.